My name is Cole, and the most satisfying moment of my entire career didn't happen in a boardroom. It didn't happen when Forbes put my name in print. It didn't happen when I signed a $40 million government contract or when my company's valuation crossed 9 figures. It happened at a steakhouse. On my 30th birthday, when my father picked up my business card off a white tablecloth, held it up like evidence in a courtroom, and laughed in front of his senior law partner, telling him that his own son had printed a fake executive title at Staples because he was too delusional to accept being a nobody. What my father didn't know, what he had never once bothered to find out, was that the company printed on that card had been paying his law firm $840,000 a year for the past 18 months. I had been signing those checks. His firm's entire financial survival for the past year and a half had been sitting quietly in my hands. And he had spent that entire time telling anyone who would listen that his youngest son, Cole, was still figuring out his little computer hobby. Here's what makes this different from every story you've heard about a successful kid proving a dismissive parent wrong. I didn't confront him. I didn't give a speech. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't even raise my voice. I simply stood up from that dinner table, walked to my car, opened my phone, and sent one email that ended his firm's most important revenue stream before the dessert plates were cleared. 30 days later, they were laying off associates. 60 days later, my father was calling me to beg. And 90 days later, I had learned something about respect, about family, and about the difference between people who love you and people who need you, that no business school on earth could have taught me. This is the full story. Stay with me, because every single detail matters. To understand why Saturday night at Morton's Steakhouse changed everything, you have to understand what the previous 12 years looked like. My father, Raymond Cole Sr., built his entire identity around being the most impressive man in any room he walked into. Senior partner at Cole and Hadley, a mid-sized corporate law firm in downtown Denver. Custom suits, a BMW 7 Series, a handshake that lingered a little too long because he wanted you to feel the weight of who he was. He had graduated from University of Colorado Law with honors, and he treated that fact the way some people treat a religion, as the organizing principle around which all other things were measured. My older brother Nathan became a cardiologist. Perfect. My sister Vanessa married a commercial real estate developer who played golf with city council members. Also perfect. And then there was me, Cole, the youngest, the one who said at 17 that he wanted to study computer science. I remember exactly what my father said when I told him. We were at the kitchen table. He lowered his newspaper. This was a man who still read a physical newspaper, and he looked at me the way a judge looks at a motion he's already decided to deny. Computers, he said. Not a question, just the word, sitting there like something unpleasant. Computer science, I said. Engineering, software, cybersecurity, eventually. There's a lot of. Cole. He folded the newspaper. Computers are tools. People who fix tools are mechanics. Is that what you want? To be a mechanic for machines? My mother said nothing. She never said anything when he was like this. She just found something to wipe down in the kitchen. I went to Colorado State University, got my computer science degree. My father attended one day of graduation, not the ceremony, just the dinner afterward, and spent most of it asking Nathan about his residency program. When I mentioned I'd already accepted a job offer at a tech startup for $68,000 a year, he made a sound I can only describe as involuntary pity, like he'd accidentally witnessed something sad. Nathan's signing bonus alone was more than that, he said. Not to be cruel. That was the terrifying part. He genuinely thought he was giving me useful perspective. So I learned something early. I learned to stop reporting. When I got promoted to senior developer at year 2, I didn't mention it. When I jumped companies for $98,000, I told my mother quietly and asked her not to make it a dinner conversation. When I became a team lead at $135,000, I said nothing. When I was recruited as director of engineering at a fintech company for $185,000 plus equity, I celebrated alone in my apartment with takeout and a documentary about the Apollo program. And when Nexus Cyber Solutions, a rapidly expanding cybersecurity firm with government contracts and Fortune 500 clients, offered me the position of Chief Technology Officer at 30 years old, with a $330,000 base salary, significant equity, a seat on the executive board, and oversight of 140 engineers across 4 countries, I called exactly one person. My college roommate Derek, who understood immediately and said, Let's get absurdly good tacos. That was the whole celebration. My father, at that point, thought I was still doing something entry-level at some company somewhere. He didn't know the company's name. He had never asked. He introduced me at family gatherings as my youngest, Cole. He does IT work, and I had stopped correcting him years ago because correcting him required a conversation, and conversations with my father about my career always ended the same way. He would listen for 30 seconds, then redirect to something Nathan had accomplished, then tell a story about a case he'd won, and I would be standing there holding a sentence I never finished. But here's the thing nobody knew. Nobody in my family. Nobody at his firm. Nexus Cyber Solutions had been a client of Cole and Hadley for the past 18 months. Let me explain exactly how that happened, because this is the part that sounds impossible until you understand how large companies actually operate. When I joined Nexus as CTO, one of my first responsibilities was helping evaluate our external legal partnerships. We needed serious corporate legal support, IP filings, government contract compliance, acquisition support, vendor agreements. Our general counsel, a sharp woman named Patricia Odom, had compiled a short list of mid-sized Denver firms. Her reasoning was sound. Mid-sized firms give large clients premium attention. They need you more than you need them. They move faster than the big institutional practices because they're not billing you to justify associate hours on 15 floors. Cole and Hadley was on that list. And yes, I noticed the name. How could I not? But I want to be honest about something. I did not engineer this. I didn't steer Patricia toward my father's firm out of some long gestating scheme. I reviewed the short list the same way I review everything, by the data. Cole and Hadley had strong IP experience. Their regulatory compliance record was solid. Their client retention metrics were good. And Patricia had already spoken with their senior partner handling business development, a man named Frank Whitmore, who had apparently impressed her with his preparation. I could have flagged the name. I could have said, I have a personal connection here, and we should recuse. But I ran the numbers. Their firm was good. Their pricing was competitive. And honestly, and I want to be transparent about this, part of me was curious. I wanted a front row seat to how my father's firm actually operated when they thought they were talking to nobody important. When they thought they were just talking to Cole from the executive team on conference calls. Because that was the thing. My last name is Cole. The firm is Cole and Hadley. Nobody connected it because why would they? Cole is not an unusual name. My father had never mentioned me in any professional context because in his professional world, I didn't exist. And I had joined every conference call as Cole, which Patricia's assistant had simply listed as the executive CTO contact. Frank Whitmore had spoken with me a dozen times over 18 months. He thought I was some executive named Cole somewhere in the organizational chart. Not the founder's son. Not the child his partner had spent 12 years describing as a tech hobby enthusiast who hadn't found himself yet. I watched everything from that seat. I watched how they built, how they communicated, how they handled complexity. Frank Whitmore was genuinely excellent, thorough, responsive, creative in his approach to our intellectual property questions. The work was legitimately good. And I watched something else too. I watched my father's firm slowly stabilize financially, quarter over quarter, because Nexus was their anchor. We were their third largest client, representing somewhere between 18 and 22% of their annual revenue. Without us, Cole and Hadley's numbers started looking uncomfortable. With us, they could breathe. My father, meanwhile, thought I was coordinating IT projects somewhere. The birthday dinner was my mother's idea. Or at least she was the one who called. Your father wants to do something nice for your 30th, Morton's. Saturday. I knew what it actually was, a portrait of the family in its proper hierarchy. Nathan and his wife, looking the part of a successful physician household. Vanessa and her husband Douglas, the developer, polished and connected. And me, the youngest, providing scale by contrast, proof of how far the other two had come. I went because I have always gone. Not out of hope. I stopped hoping years ago. I went because I had learned that the most important information in any situation is collected by the person who's still in the room when everyone else stops performing. I was wearing a good suit. I always wear good suits now, occupational habit, and I had a new box of business cards in my desk at home. Premium stock, embossed, clean. My title sharp and clear beneath my name. Cole Merritt, Chief Technology Officer, Nexus Cyber Solutions. I had transferred $5 into my wallet that morning without thinking about it. Same way I always do. Force of habit. In my world, you never know who you're having dinner next to. Dinner was exactly what I expected. Dad at the head of the table. Nathan describing a complex cardiac procedure with the comfortable authority of a man who knows he's the intended audience of every room. Douglas mentioning a hotel acquisition he was structuring. Vanessa nodding in the right places. Mom making sure water glasses never dipped below half full. I ate my steak. I checked my phone twice. The second time, my father said, "Cole, put that away. We're doing family here." I set it down. He made a comment to Nathan about screen addiction in the tech generation. Nathan laughed politely. I took another bite. Then Frank Whitmore walked in. Frank Whitmore, senior business partner at Cole and Hadley. The man who had billed Nexus Cyber Solutions $840,000 across 40-plus legal matters. The man who had told me personally, on our last contract review call, that Nexus was exactly the kind of long-term client relationship Cole and Hadley was built for. He saw my father across the restaurant and came over immediately. They had the warm ease of men who had built something together. My dad stood, shook his hand, made the introductions. Nathan, the surgeon, Vanessa and Douglas. And then, "Frank, this is Cole, my youngest." Frank nodded at me pleasantly. Completely blank recognition. No context, no connection. Cole from the executive team had never existed in the same room as his partner's family dinner. Why would he look for it? "Happy birthday," he said. "Thank you," I said. They pulled chairs. My dad ordered wine. Frank and his wife settled in. The conversation moved the way these things move. Firm gossip, mutual acquaintances, the texture of Denver's legal community. Nathan asked about the firm with the easy confidence of someone who knows his table position is secure. "We're doing well, actually," Frank said. He had a way of delivering good news without seeming to brag. Practiced professional modesty. Had a significant client come on board about a year and a half ago. Tech sector. Really stabilized our revenue picture. "Raymond, you've done excellent work on their compliance framework." Dad waved this off graciously. "Standard corporate work. Nothing too exotic." I was cutting my steak into smaller pieces. "Still," Frank continued, "it's a meaningful account. Probably our third largest now. Cybersecurity firm. Government adjacent. So the compliance requirements are real. Very solid operation. Tech companies," my father said, reaching for his wine with the relaxed authority of a man sharing wisdom. "Mostly venture money. No real permanence. They come in with a big budget and 3 years later they're looking for acquirers or shutting down. We take the work while it's there." Frank shifted just slightly. "This one seems fairly durable. Nexus Cyber Solutions. They've got federal contracts, serious Fortune 500 relationships. I don't see them going anywhere." My phone vibrated against my thigh. Patricia Odom. * Cole. Whitmore's team sent over the updated federal vendor agreement. "It's clean. Do I approve their invoice for this month?" I typed back under the table. Hold for now. I'll follow up Monday. What does Cole do professionally? Frank asked, making the social effort to bring me into the conversation. Polite professional table habit. I watched my father's face. He opened his mouth. And I want you to understand that I had no plan in this moment. I was simply watching, collecting data, seeing what the man said when he thought it cost him nothing. He does, a half-second pause. Computer work, IT-type stuff, project coordination at some tech company, entry-level mostly. He's still, finding his path. 12 years, 7 promotions, 2 patents, CTO at 30, 140 engineers, federal cybersecurity infrastructure. Forbes mentions, finding his path. Nathan jumped in with the kindness of someone who doesn't realize how deep the hole already is. Cole's being modest, I think. He manages some kind of tech projects. Like a coordinator. Coordinator, my father confirmed, with the finality of a man who has given this answer 100 times and sees no reason to update it. He coordinates IT. For one of those tech startups. It's honest work. He looked at Frank with the micro-expression of a man quietly apologizing for a disappointment. Not everyone has the aptitude for law or medicine. He found something that suits him. Frank nodded the way people nod when they've already mentally moved on. And then I reached for my credit card. I don't know exactly how it happened mechanically. I've replayed it 100 times. My wallet opened, the card came out, and with it, because they were pressed together in the same slot, came one of my new business cards. It landed face up on the white tablecloth. Clean embossed text visible to everyone at the table. Cole Merritt, Chief Technology Officer. Nexus Cyber Solutions. ***. My father picked it up before I could reach it. He read it. And then he did something I will never forget as long as I live. He started laughing. Not a small laugh. A genuine, delighted, look at this laugh. The laugh of a man who has found something absurd and wants to share it. Did you have these made somewhere? He held the card up toward Frank and Nathan. Look at this. Chief Technology Officer. He said the title the way you'd say a child's drawing of a horse is a horse. Cole, you can't just print an executive title and hand these out. That's not how it works. Nathan was staring at the card, uncertain. Frank had gone from pleasantly unfocused to extremely still. It's a template, Dad. I can show you. I started. No, seriously. He was still smiling, but the edge was sharpening into something harder. Embarrassment-driven anger. This is a real legal issue, actually. Misrepresenting yourself as an executive of a company is fraud. Where did you get these printed? There are websites that let you build fake business cards. He turned to Frank with the posture of a man managing a situation. I apologize. He's always. The ambition is there. The reality just hasn't caught up yet. Frank said nothing for a moment. I watched his face work through something. Then he said, carefully and quietly, Raymond, I know this person. Dad chuckled. Frank, you don't have to. I know this person professionally. Frank's voice had acquired a specific quality. The quality of a man choosing every word the way you choose your footing on ice. M. Cole, from Nexus Cyber Solutions. I've spoken with them on at least, I'd say 8 or 9 conference calls over the past 18 months. Silence. My father blinked. The Nexus account, Frank said, still carefully. The account I was just describing. Cole Merritt is the CTO. That's Raymond. That's your son. I watched my father's face go through 5 different expressions in 4 seconds. Confusion. Rejection of the confusion. Beginning of comprehension. Attempt to find an alternate explanation. Arrival at a place that had no comfortable interpretation. That's not possible, he said. Not to me. To Frank. As if Frank might be wrong. Frank looked at me. I looked at Frank. Neither of us said anything. My father turned to me then, and I could see him searching my face for the easy exit. The version of this where it was still a misunderstanding. Where his IT coordinator son happened to share a name with a technology executive, and we could all laugh about it over dessert. Cole, he said. You don't actually. Enjoy the rest of your dinner, I said. I picked up my card from where he had thrown it on the tablecloth. I put it back in my wallet. I folded my napkin. I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and walked out of Morton Steakhouse at a normal pace without looking back. I did not slam the door. I did not deliver a line. I did not give him the dramatic exit he could later describe as emotional or irrational. I walked to my car, sat down, and opened my email. Patricia, effective immediately, we are terminating legal services with Cole and Hadley. Begin full transition of all active matters to Hendricks Legal Group by Monday morning. Contact Frank Whitmore's office with formal notification. Do not mention my family connection. Honor all outstanding invoices in full. 30-day transition window for active matters. No renewals, *. Sent at 8:51 p.m. on a Saturday. Patricia responded 11 minutes later. *. Understood. Transition letter will go Monday 9 a.m. Anything specific you want in the language? *. Strategic restructuring. Service consolidation. Professional, warm, final, *. I sat in the parking lot for a while. The night was clear and the city was lit up, and I felt something I had not expected to feel, which was not satisfaction and not anger and not sadness. I felt the specific calm of a person who has been collecting data for 12 years and has finally reached a conclusion that the data fully supports. Frank called while I was sitting there. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Declined. Then a text. * Cole, please call me. Ricardo didn't understand what was happening. We need to talk. * Another call. Another decline. I drove home to my apartment in downtown Denver. The one I own, the one my father had never visited, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows looking over the city that I bought at 28 and paid for in cash. Sunday morning arrived with the full weight of a family in crisis mode. My mother called at 7:15. I answered because I always answer my mother. Cole, please. Come over. Your father wants to apologize. Frank called him last night after you left. He explained everything. What specifically did Frank explain? A pause. That you work there? At that company? Did Frank explain my title? Longer pause. He said you're in management. Even now. Even after Frank Whitmore had personally called his partner at home on a Saturday night to explain the situation in detail. Even after $840,000 in legal fees paid by my company over 18 months. Even now, my mother could only say management. Mom, I am the Chief Technology Officer. I run the entire technology department for a cybersecurity firm with federal contracts and nine-figure revenue. I have 140 engineers reporting to me across 4 countries. I hold 2 patents on security infrastructure protocols that are used industry-wide. I have been in this industry for 12 years across 7 positions. Forbes has published my name in 2 separate articles about emerging technology leadership. Silence. Nexus Cyber Solutions, I continued, has paid Cole and Hadley $840,000 over the past 18 months. Frank Whitmore has spoken with me personally on conference calls, reviewed contracts I approved, and billed me for legal work I authorized. Your husband spent Saturday night telling his senior partner that his son had printed a fake business card from an internet template in front of the man who has been billing my company 6 figures annually. Cole, tell Dad that Patricia Odom, our general counsel, will send formal termination notice at 9 a.m. Monday. Cole and Hadley's engagement with Nexus is finished. We'll honor the transition professionally. But we're done. Your father needs that account. Frank told him it's nearly 20% of the firm's revenue. Then Dad should have spent 20% of one conversation over 12 years asking a genuine question about my career. I ended the call. Monday arrived with precision. Patricia's letter went out at exactly 9 a.m. I had read the draft 3 times. It was immaculate, professional, appreciative, final. No trace of anything personal. Strategic restructuring. Service consolidation. Full payment of outstanding balances. 30-day transition window. The kind of termination letter you could frame and put in a law school case study about how to end a vendor relationship with dignity. My phone became something I could only check in intervals. Frank called 6 times before 10. My father called twice. Nathan texted, Cole, this is an overreaction. He made a mistake at dinner. You're hurting people who have nothing to do with this. I replied. I'm making a business decision about our legal services provider. The fact that it affects family doesn't make it the wrong business decision. He didn't respond. Vanessa called crying. Genuinely crying. You're destroying Dad's livelihood, Cole. Over one dinner. Over one comment. How can you do that? I'm not destroying anything. I'm moving our legal services to a different firm with 30 days notice and full payment of all invoices. That is the professional standard for vendor transitions. What your father did was call his son a fraud in front of his business partner. I'm not sure which of those things we should be more focused on. You're being vindictive. Vanessa, vindictive would be writing negative reviews or contacting their other clients. I am giving them a 30-day transition window, paying everything we owe, and offering a clean positive reference to anyone who asks about their work quality. That is more professional courtesy than most firms extend. She hung up. Tuesday morning, Frank Whitmore showed up at Nexus headquarters without an appointment. Our front desk called me. I could have sent him away. I want to be honest about that. I had no legal or professional obligation to speak with him, but I had something I needed him to understand. Not for my benefit. For his. Send him to conference room B. I said. I'll be down in 15 minutes. I made him wait 18. When I walked in, Frank stood immediately. He looked like a man who had not slept since Saturday. He probably hadn't. Cole, thank you for seeing me. I know I don't have an appointment. You have 5 minutes, I said. I sat. He stayed standing for a moment, then slowly sat down. I'm asking you to reconsider the termination. Ricardo made a mistake. If he had known who you were. Frank, stop there. I need you to hear this specific part. I leaned forward slightly. Your firm has worked with Nexus for 18 months. You have billed us $840,000. We have spoken personally on, I believe, 9 separate conference calls. You have sent me contracts for technical review. You have answered my questions about IP filings. You have handled federal compliance documentation that required my authorization. At no point in 18 months did you, or anyone at your firm, or your partner, ask whether M. Cole from Nexus had any relation to Raymond Cole from Cole and Hadley. Frank shifted. Cole is a common enough name. I had no reason to. Exactly. You had no reason to. Because my father has spent 12 years in his professional environment never mentioning that his youngest son works in technology leadership. Because in his worldview, that son doesn't exist at any level worth mentioning. So when I showed up at a birthday dinner, neither of you had the information to make the connection. And when my business card fell on that table, your partner's first instinct, his immediate, unfiltered, completely automatic instinct, was that his son had fabricated it. Because that is how certain he was that what I do cannot possibly be real. Silence. I'm not pulling our account because your partner embarrassed me at dinner. I'm pulling our account because Saturday night showed me the complete picture of what my father actually believes about who I am. And a man who thinks that little of his own son's professional reality cannot be my firm's legal counsel. The conflict isn't a legal one. It's a clarity one. Frank was quiet for a long moment. 20% of our revenue, Cole. We'll have to make cuts. I stood. Then I would suggest that Cole and Hadley diversify its client portfolio and restructure its business development approach. Hendricks will take excellent care of our matters. I'll make sure you receive full payment on everything outstanding before the transition closes. Your firm does good work, Frank. That's not what this is about. What is it about then? I picked up my portfolio. It's about the fact that you just found out your partner has a son he's never mentioned. A son who has been sitting across the conference table from you for a year and a half. Ask yourself what that tells you about the man. Then ask yourself if that man's judgment about people, about the world, about who matters and who doesn't, is someone you want making strategic decisions at your firm. I walked out. They came to my apartment Wednesday evening. All of them. My mother, my father, Nathan, Vanessa, Douglas. I watched them on the security camera for a moment before I opened the door. A family portrait in the wrong setting, standing outside a life they hadn't bothered to know existed. I opened the door because I wanted them to see the apartment. Not to show off. To show them what invisible looks like from the inside. My father stepped into the entryway and stopped. The floor-to-ceiling windows. The city below. The built-in bookshelves covering the north wall. The original artwork. Not prints, actual work from artists I'd collected over years because it brought me something steady. He looked around the way a man looks at a room he realizes he should have known about and somehow doesn't. You own this, he said. It wasn't a question exactly. More like a man testing whether a surface can bear weight. Bought it at 28, I said. Cash transaction. You've never asked where I live, so I never mentioned it. My mother looked at a photograph on the shelf. Me and a group of engineers at a product launch in Singapore. She looked at it for a long time. My father made his case. He had clearly prepared. He was still a good lawyer. Organized, sequential, genuinely attempting sincerity. He was wrong on Saturday night. He should not have assumed. He should have asked more over the years. He wanted to do better. He was proud of what I'd built. I let him finish. Dad, let me ask you a specific question. When you tell me you're proud, are you proud because something changed in how you see me? Or are you proud because Frank Whitmore called you Saturday night and told you that the technology your son works with generates revenue large enough to matter to a mid-sized law firm? He started to answer. I watched the specific moment when a man with 30 years of courtroom practice cannot find the argument he needs. That moment when the evidence doesn't support the position. That's what I thought, I said quietly. There's a difference between someone who is proud of you and someone who is impressed by your credentials. You are not proud of me. You are impressed by my income. You are impressed that Forbes mentioned me. You are impressed because Frank Whitmore is impressed, and Frank Whitmore's opinion has always mattered to you. But you weren't in the room when I got my first promotion. You weren't there when I filed my first patent. You weren't proud when I signed my first government contract. You didn't know those things happened. And you didn't know because you decided 12 years ago that what I was building wasn't worth the attention it would take to understand. Cole. Nathan, quietly. What would it take? What do you need from us? I looked at my brother, and I want to be fair to Nathan, because he was always kinder than the situation required. He never mocked me. He simply stood in the center of our father's attention and occasionally forgot that the center isn't the whole room. I needed you to ask, I said. That's it. I needed someone in this family to ask what I was working on, what I was building, what I was proud of. I didn't need anyone to understand it perfectly. I needed someone to be curious. About me. Not about whether my career made the family look good. About me. Nathan nodded slowly. He didn't have a defense for that, and he knew it. My father stood at the window, looking at Denver below, and he was doing something I had never seen him do at a family gathering. He was listening, not building his next argument. Actually listening. "I can't undo Saturday night," he said finally. "I can't undo 12 years of conversations I should have had with you. I don't know how to fix that. I don't even know if you want me to try." "The account isn't coming back," I said. "That's not punishment. That's just a business decision that became appropriate. Hendricks is the right firm for us now." He nodded. "But I'll answer your calls," I said. "If you call to actually talk, not to fix the revenue problem, not because Frank asked you to reach out. If you want to actually know who I am, not who you need me to be, I'll answer." He turned from the window, and the thing I hadn't expected was how old he looked in that moment. Not diminished, just old. A man who had spent 30 years being the most impressive person in the room and was standing in his son's apartment realizing he had been building in the wrong direction the whole time. They left slowly. My father was the last one to the door. "I should have come to your graduation," he said. "Yes," I said. "You should have." I closed the door. 3 months later, Cole and Hadley has adjusted to its new financial reality. 2 junior associates let go. Office space reduced. Business development budget increased, which is the right move. Frank Whitmore sent a handwritten note, not a basket, not a gift, a note. It said that he had learned something from what happened, and that he hoped I knew the work his team had done for Nexus had been done well and with respect. I wrote back, asterisk it was. That's why it was a difficult decision. Asterisk because it was. My family and I exist now in a different kind of relationship. My mother texts more often. Nathan asked me last month, genuinely, with follow-up questions, about what my team had been building in our threat detection division. It was a 20-minute conversation, and he understood maybe 40% of it, and he asked good questions about the 40% he didn't. It was the best conversation we'd had in years. Vanessa has not called since she hung up on me. I don't push it. Some distances close when they're ready to. My father called 3 weeks after the intervention. I answered. He talked for a few minutes about something ordinary, the weather, a case he was working. And then he asked, in the careful way of a man learning new habits, "What are you working on right now? At Nexus, what's taking up most of your time?" I told him about a federal infrastructure security project, about a new protocol my team was developing, about a vulnerability we'd identified in systems used by municipal governments across 11 states. He was quiet in a way that was different from the old quiet. Not dismissive quiet. Just trying to follow quiet. "That sounds significant," he said. "It is," I said. We talked for 40 minutes. He didn't mention the legal account once. I don't know if that's growth or just strategy. I'm still collecting data on that question. Maybe I'll have enough to reach a conclusion eventually. Maybe the data will never be clean enough to be certain. But here's what I know. Success that other people need to be told about before they can see it. That's not really recognition. It's just information. The people who mattered to my growth were the ones who were paying attention before anyone told them to. My early managers who saw something in a junior engineer before I had credentials to justify it. The colleagues who stayed late arguing about architecture problems because they genuinely cared about getting it right. The investors who bet on our team's instincts before the revenue charts made it an easy decision. Those people are worth everything. My father respects me now. My family treats me with a different kind of attention now. And I'm glad, genuinely, without bitterness, that something cracked open in that restaurant on my birthday. I'm glad Frank Whitmore was there. I'm glad the card fell out. I'm glad it happened in public where I couldn't minimize it and my father couldn't contain it. Because what came out of Saturday night at Morton's Steakhouse wasn't revenge. It was information. Finally, after 30 years, complete information about who we are to each other and what it's going to take to build something different. I'm a chief technology officer. I make decisions based on data. And for the first time in a long time, I have everything I need to make this one.